welcome to another episode of the Tetra Travels. This week was a trip to the Hayward Gallery at the South Bank Centre. Hope you enjoy it and you learn something from the video. This week's trip was a somewhat spontaneous one. We happened to be over at the South Bank Centre having a meal with some friends when we spotted there was an art exhibition over at the Hayward Centre, one of the big art exhibits in London. It was Louise Bourgeois, The Woven Child. We thought, why not give it a go while we were there and it was nice weather, and see what the access is like. This was the entrance. We went through the gift shop to enter and into the foyer. It turned out tickets were £15 each, but that included a carer, so it wasn't. We went into this with a completely open mind, having no idea who Louise Bourgeois was. It turned out she did a lot of textural work with woven fabrics to make sculptures. We actually found it really interesting. A lot of the exhibits in this area seem to focus on sort of disabilities and sex, and a lot to do with like feminist sort of rights and the womb. It was all quite sort of strange, I would say. We didn't really understand much of it, but it was interesting, and it was nice to see some sort of disability representation in there. I actually really found it fascinating, and at times, though, we did have a bit of a laugh because interpreting art however we see it is not necessarily as cultural as some people. The Hayward Centre, where the exhibit was held, was fairly good for access. It was all flat-floored, very easy to get around, and it had lifts, although one of the lifts to the sort of halfway level was broken, which meant we had to go up a very steep ramp, which wasn't ideal. This ramp was extremely steep. It was slippery as well, which didn't help, so I felt like I was actually going to slide backwards the whole time. I actually couldn't get all the way to the top myself. At this point, I was really laughing because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this on my own, but I wanted to film it from a perspective of this is sort of problems that somebody on their own would face. Luckily, I had my friend with me, so we would have got up the slope all right, but I thought I'll persevere and try and see if I can do it. As you can see, that was a rather big struggle. By this point, my arms were sort of melting away, and I felt like every time I pushed, I was sliding backwards a little bit, which didn't help matters. Then I got to this point, and in the end, I decided that enough was enough, and to have a shove. The ramp was actually even worse going down, as it was quite dangerous. We nearly took out a few people going down as we were both sliding. My friend's shoes were slipping on the surface. Once we got to the top, there was more sculptures there that again seemed to be about the ovaries and the womb and sort of feminist movements. It was all quite interesting, although we didn't really know how to interpret it and often probably giggled our way through it, much to the annoyance of everyone else around us. But we had a great time, and we'd like to think we learnt a little bit. The exhibits upstairs seemed to be more sort of normal and to do with sort of textures and using bits of old clothing to create new items of design. I'll sort of whiz through this next bit, but the other thing that was quite interesting, there was a sort of overall theme of spiders and mothers being protective of their children, which was quite fascinating, but also a little bit creepy. When we finished, we explored the outside of the centre to see what else was around the South Bank. Here was the sort of entrance area, and as you can see, it's all very flat and accessible. There was a weird sculpture outside of sort of half a man with water pouring down onto it from the bridge above. These kids seemed to find it absolutely amazing and running through it. I don't quite know what they were planning on achieving, as it was actually quite a chilly day despite my clothing. So I should imagine they got pretty cold. We were wheeling past, and I think it was near enough at this point that my friend decided to push me in, so I might just go to that clip for a little bit. As funny as I found that, I did end up swearing at them as I thought I was going to be pushed in. Anyway, outside the rest of the South Bank Centre, the ramps are very good, and all the general access is quite alright. I would say the South Bank Centre is quite confusing, a bit of a maze, and if you don't know where you're going, it can be a bit complicated. So I did find that I got lost. I actually recently did a trip to the National Theatre over there, and it took me ages to find out how to get in. There seems to be sort of 3 separate levels of the area, and if you don't know which level you're meant to be on, it can be quite difficult to navigate. It was actually designed by the same architect as my university, and my university was also a concrete jungle, which was a bit of a maze, so it was only to be expected, really, I guess. But the view from the top here was really nice, and it was a lovely sunny day, which really helped. So we had a really nice trip out, and really enjoyed ourselves. I would definitely recommend visiting, and it's like the atmosphere is really great. It was just people chilling and spending a nice time in the sun in the area. I had to share this lift because it was a bit weird and quite funny. It's actually got a singing lift, so we didn't know that was going to happen until we got in it, but it gave us a bit of a laugh when we found out.
Going down. Floor 1. Doors opening.
On our way back to Waterloo Station, which is about a 7-minute walk, 10-minute walk from the back of the South Bank Centre, we realised there is a food market that happens on the weekend. It was actually really interesting, lots of different food. We would probably go back because actually we'd eaten already, but there was loads of places we really fancied. I did end up actually buying some samosas just because my eyes are bigger than my belly. So despite being absolutely stuffed from the meal before, I just couldn't resist. The food and the smells around this place were amazing, and I would definitely recommend a trip through here if you do venture down to the South Bank on a weekend. So that's it for this week. I would definitely recommend going to the South Bank Centre. The gallery will be changing on the 15th of May, so the exhibition will not be on for much longer, but I would definitely recommend it for whatever exhibition goes on in the future. You might learn something even if you don't know the person. But please like, share and subscribe, and hopefully you'll follow my weekly journey. And yeah, please enjoy the videos, and yeah, see you soon. Goodbye.